If you opened up your phone right now, what would your daily screen time average be? And actually, did that make your life better today? Hello, I am Jasmine Rice. I'm the founder of VoiceQuest Agency, and today I am talking with one of our amazing speakers, Stephen Jaye. Not only is he a professional speaker, he is also the founder of Reclaim Your Time, which is a practical framework to cut low-value screen time without the shame. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Jasmine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk about this today. And just to give our listeners a little snippet of what you talk about in your presentations and when you facilitate to different groups. So can you give us just a 60-second tour of your 6-step method?
All right, that's good. I get 10 seconds of method. So I'll start. The first is scoping the problem, which is just how many hours you're losing. And then the next step is a life evaluation. What do you want different about your life? What do you want to work on, improve? And the third is behavior selection, which is you just take those life outcomes and you boil it down to certain behaviors that will help you achieve those outcomes. And then the fourth step is identifying those triggers. What moments in your life, what common situations do you oftentimes lose time to this low value screen time trap? And then step number five is kind of the meat of everything, which is facilitating the actual behavior replacement, replacing picking up your phone with picking up a book or going to the gym or something like that. And then finally, the sixth step is just kind of like your continuing improvement step. What comes next, which is first of all, making sure that you lock in those gains you've made to your life, but also think about if there's another behavior replacement, another situation, or even something beyond screen time that you can make some improvements on.
Do you feel that there's one of those steps that when you're going through this framework that people often skip, or it's more challenging for them to make that change?
So oddly enough, some people skip the final step. They're like, okay, I've made this behavior replacement, I'm done. But the one I think that a lot of people oftentimes skip is that second step, that life evaluation, because people often come knowing about how much time they're losing, and then they start having a behavior. But it's the mapping of behavior to a life outcome that's really going to make you be motivated to actually stick to the behavior replacement when it becomes tough, because you have to overcome old subconscious programming in your head. And so there's going to be times when your subconscious brain is going to try to map you back to your old behavior. And that life evaluation is really going to keep that motivation going.
That reminds me of something in NLP, so neurolinguistic programming. I'm a practitioner in that, and one of the techniques that we talk about is pattern interruption. And so
Mhm.
you have to just start implementing that pattern interruption. So you mentioned that one of your steps is the triggers, identifying those triggers.
Yeah.
So when we can finally identify those, and this certain thing causes me to pick up my phone and want to start scrolling, what is something that we can do to swap that out?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. One of the easiest things is to have something within arm's reach. So, for example, I'm sitting here at my desk, and a lot of people, you're sitting at your desk, and let's say you're waiting for something to download or upload, and that blue circles thing comes on. You'll have an instinct to kind of pull out your phone and do this like that, right? But if there's something else you can do within that same arm's reach, especially if it appears over it. So, if you have your phone here, but if you put the other thing to do on top of it, then when you're looking at your desk, you'll say, oh, I'm just reminded while I'm just sitting here waiting and I don't want to start a new task, I can look into this instead of pulling out my phone.
That's amazing. I love that. I'm going to implement that today. Actually, I love putting it on
That's
top of your
wonderful.
phone too. So, I mean, sitting next to it's one thing, but actually putting it on top of it, because you'd have to physically move it to grab your phone.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So when you and I first met and we started talking about what you present on, you had talked about how this really can improve your mental health. Can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, 100%. One of the worst aspects of screen time, especially if it's what I refer to as unintentional screen time. Unintentional screen time, when the defining characteristic of it is when you're not in control of what content you're consuming. Now, the platforms that give you the content, whether it be a blog, a video, posts, whatever, their only motivation is to get you hooked into the platform as long as possible. So the content they're giving you is not the content that's necessarily going to be the best for you. It's not even necessarily what you wanted to be looking at. And so what you find out is that you end up looking at stuff that wasn't your intention. And one of the secrets to this whole world is that negative content actually spreads 6 times faster than positive content online. And this is because evolutionarily, if you think about how our brains evolved during, the jungle time or whatever, we needed to think about that negative thing way more than the positive thing, because that lion that was about to chase you and eat you was going to be much more immediate concern than maybe a new source of berries over there. And the new source of berries you can always come to later. So our brains are evolutionary trained to think of the negative more than the positive. They discovered it, and so there's going to be a lot of negative content. And consuming a lot of negative content is what leads to a lot of depression, anxiety, as well as all the divisions that we're seeing now in our world.
That's so true. After meeting you and talking to you, was definitely more aware of my screen time when I looked at the amount of time I spent. I'm not even going to admit how many hours it was.
Yeah.
But I was running into that. I did find that I was running into that. I would go to TikTok maybe just to look at something that my sister had posted. But then
Yeah.
there are other things I wasn't planning on seeing that was really affecting my mood or my day. So I think that's really important for people to be aware of. Now, when I was talking to one of my friends about what you speak on, he said, I am forced to be on my phone because it's part of my job. So Slack is something that he has to be on throughout the day for his team. And he said, so what am I supposed to do if I have to be on my screen? So what is a small shift that he could make, or someone who runs into that situation where they have to be on their phones?
Yeah, so when someone has to be on their phones, and there's a difference between I have to be on Slack, which, as you know, is also available on laptops. So there's the option to switch it up to be on your laptop instead of your phone, which is a little bit better. There's still the temptation to go to like the random website, but the laptop is, marginally better than being on your phone. But if you absolutely have to be on your phone, there are actually a number of apps that do kind of certain app blocking for certain hours of the day. So, one of the ones that I use, even though I'm working on my own app right now, one of the ones I use is called Be Present. There's a bunch that are similar to that, where you can set aside time where it's like, say your workday is 9 to 5, because that's what we decided a long time ago the workday would be. But if it's, say, the workday is 9 to 5, or if you really want to be focused from, say, 9 to noon, you can set up through this app blocking, say, the most addictive ones. So block YouTube, block TikTok, block X, Instagram, the ones that really hook you in for those hours. And that's a great way to kind of, I don't know, just make sure that even though you have to be on your phone, you're not going to be tempted to do all those things.
I didn't even know that existed. So I'm going to have to look into that now. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Okay, now I want to ask you some fun questions. So not that this has not been fun, but here's just
Yeah.
some random questions here. So what is a screen-free hobby that you have?
One of my favorite screen-free hobbies is bicycling. Cycling, especially if I can get out of the city a little bit and be kind of in the mountains, or on some kind of curvy road. And I also love it because, although a few people do it in general, and when you're bicycling, your hands are supposed to be on the handlebars, so you have no temptation to even be like, I'll just look at this.
That's awesome. I love being outdoors. I have rules when I'm out hiking that I put my phone either on airplane mode or do not disturb, or I'll even sometimes not even take it with me if it's a short hike that's just a safe area. But yeah, when I run, I have my phone with me, but it's always like put away. So I think like being outdoors for me is a way that I just really can disconnect. So I love that.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
If you could auto hide an app from everyone's phone for a week, what one would it be?
So this one is hard to really decide on just one. But one of the things I think is probably TikTok, because to me, TikTok is the most impersonal of all of them when you think about it, right? Some of the other ones, like, if used right, Facebook and Instagram, you're sharing something about yourself and stuff like that. TikTok, it's the least amount of like actually connecting with friends that are actually your friends of any of them.
Okay. All right. All right. Last fun question here. What is the best $25 purchase, or it could be under $25 that has improved your day?
So I actually use a planner that's like not on my phone. So instead of having like my schedule on my phone, I use a planner. And I have these planners from At a Glance. It's kind of rubbed off because we're so far into the year, and I use it to to show, what my day is like, what things I'm doing, but also like my tasks on the other side. And that really kind of helps me stay oriented so that if I am in a spot where I'm like, I don't know what to do next, well, I have my list here. So I know what I had said previously at the beginning of the day I need to do and where I need to be.
I love that. I actually also have a paper planner that I use, and I do put things in my phone calendar to remind, like to pop up to remind me, but I have something very similar, and I love it, and it's very old school. And when I have meetings, I also take notes with a pen and paper. So
Oh, nice.
okay, well, this has been fantastic, Stephen. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me and for talking about obviously one of my favorite, most important topics of the time, but also some fun stuff as well.
Yeah. Okay, everyone. If you are interested in working with Stephen, you can learn more about him on our website. But in addition to talking about this framework, he also has a keynote on a 21st century work culture that creates happy employees and more profitable businesses. So again, if you are interested in booking Stephen for a keynote or your next professional development workshop, please learn more about him at voicequestagency.com.